Now let's take a look at how we can add some raised detail to the wings. And so this is going to be much the same way that we added detail on the fuselage. So let's turn off our curves. So we won't be dealing with the curves, we're just dealing with the NURBS geometry. And so what we want to do is add a little bit of detail flowing along this particular isoparm. And so to do that, we need to add extra isoparms in here. So if you remember, we want to right click, choose isoparm, and then I just want to add a few on either side of this edge. And let's add 2 on either side. Okay, and then remember, go to Edit NURBS, Isoparm, Insert Isoparms, and then let's do the same thing down here. So we'll add a couple on this side. Okay, and then go to Insert Isoparms. Now if we right click and go to Hole, you can see that we now have a hole in here that we can use, but I want to blend it back into the surface, and so I don't want to use the entire hole. I want to actually just use the points. So I'm going to go ahead and select some of the points here along that middle hole. Okay, kind of coming back up to here, and then I'll just pull this out in the Z and up in the Y. Okay, so we end up with sort of a big bump here. Okay, which you can see kind of blends back into the surface. Let's do the same thing here. We'll go ahead and get the center point of that grouping of 3. And we'll get that one, and then come back here, pull this straight out and straight up. And then if you want to grab this one by itself and add a little bit more to it, you can. And because we left these alone at the back, it blends back in with the surface of the wing a little bit more. But it just adds a little bit of detail in here. And because we have those extra isoparms, it makes that nice and tight. Okay, so it just breaks that shape up a little bit more. Okay, now if you want to open that up a little bit, you could take these points and space them out a little, and you can see how that opens things up. And one thing to note, and we're not going to really get into too much detail on this, but NURBS geometry, it comes with a certain parameterization, basically kind of how the resolution is distributed along the surface. And so as you start to add geometry, the parameterization gets off a little bit. And so you can go into Edit NURBS and Rebuild Surfaces, and this will allow you to rebuild those surfaces. Now again, I don't want to get too complicated. I'm just going to turn on CVs with a uniform rebuild, and you can see it just sort of spreads things out a little bit. And you can see it has softened that up slightly, but it just kind of spreads things out, makes it a little bit more even. So that's not a necessity. You don't have to do that. I just wanted to make you aware of that. Okay, and then we can come in here and shape this now. Let's see that. Okay. You can see how this is a little bit faceted. If we want to hit Control A to go into the attributes for this lofted surface, we can come down to our NURBS surface display. We can just increase the curve precision shaded to something a bit higher to help kind of smooth that out a little bit. Okay, and that's right now is really, really sharp. But again, as I said, you can come in here and start to spread out some of these points, which will kind of allow you to make that a little bit smoother, so it's not quite so sharp. And we can come in here and continue to shape that a little bit. Okay, bring this out a little. Take these bottom points, scale those out a little bit, and bring that down a little. So we get a nice element that's coming out there. All right. We can do the same thing here. Take these points, kind of scale them out a little bit just to spread them apart. Take these two guys and move them down and out a little. And then in here, we may have to go to wireframe to see these. You can see those 2 points there. We can sort of scale those out a little bit. Take that middle point down and out. And then same thing here, take these and kind of scale those out a little bit. All right, so once we've got that detail added, the next thing that we can start to tackle are the engines. So we've got some of the basic structure built out. Let's go ahead and start to work on the engines for our jet in the next lesson.